Adults, what's one opinion of yours that completely changed when you grew up? As a 13-year-old, the fact that my parents would sit down to watch TV on weeknights after dinner made me think they were mindless drones. Turns out they were just tired from work, cooking dinner, dealing with my bulls, etc., and just wanted to rest for a few hours before repeating the cycle. As a kid, I was upset with my mom for not getting me some silly thing I wanted because she only had $100-ish in the bank. I was so sure that $100 is a lot of money. 20 years later, I now understand it is not. I'm ashamed to admit that, as a child, I never looked at money as a serious thing. We weren't rich, far from it, just never thought about it. Once I experienced a point of my life where I had $7 in my account, no savings, and no job, with bills due that week, I realized mom and dad really tried their hardest. I used to care a lot about what everyone thought of me. Sometimes I still do, but as I grew older I realized nobody really thinks about you cause they're too busy thinking about themselves. Was in the same boat for a long time. Too long, really. I think knowing this when I was younger, like a teen, would have been really freeing. When I was a kid, I thought what adults did was an example of what I should do. Later, I realized it was just as often an example of what not to do. Everyone is a teacher, my dad always says, good or bad. That everything is my mom's fault and my dad could do no wrong. Now I realize my mom needs therapy and my dad needs a serious reality check. I've come to realize those same things as of recent. My dad is a real selfish prick. I thought I was invincible and knew everything. The other day I hurt myself waking up, not getting out of bed. I woke up and stretched my toes out and now my ankle hurts and I'm not very smart. I feel you. I once threw my neck out while sleeping. I remember arching my neck a little and then rolling my spine and I felt the instant it tweaked in pain and I woke up just cursing at my dumb self. LOL. People have a reason for doing what they do. It might not be a good reason, a nice reason, or even a logical reason, but they do have a reason. So if someone is doing something you consider to be overwhelmingly stupid, there is probably a reason for it and you should probably find out what that reason is before you try and BS them about it. It might be stupid, or you might learn something. One of the best questions to ask someone is why are you doing it like that without sounding condescending. You may learn something new in the process. I'm not special, unique, yes, because there is literally only one of me, but special, no clue why my mum was so obsessed with pretending I was destined for greatness, but the fact of the matter is I am average just like the majority of people on this planet. We are like snowflakes, every one of us completely and utterly unique. However, when we're put together we're all just a pile of indistinguishable snow. It actually doesn't matter if my sandwich is cut in triangles or in rectangles. In fact, I'd rather it not be cut at all, but if it's in squares it's no big deal. I'd like to apologize to the babysitter I melted down on. Looking back, that was no reason to cry until I threw up. With all due respect for your growth and signs of maturity, triangles are where it's at, though not worth a meltdown. That being kind is more important than any natural gift. No situation is so bad that a person can't make it worse. It's tough, but being kind is always better. Another truth, it's not easy being kind and kind people should get more credit. When I was young, I thought I knew everything. Now that I'm relatively old, I realize I'm ignorant about 99% of life. It makes life interesting, though. The more you know, the more you realize you don't know anything. That having kids and raising them was an easy job since I saw everyone doing it. Ever since I grew up, I realized they are mostly doing it wrong and it's probably one of the toughest jobs out there because a person's entire life is in your hands. People don't take it as seriously as they should. When I was a kid I was always bothered by how long it took my mom to get out of the car. I would jump out as soon as it stopped. Now as an adult it probably takes me longer than it took her to gather up my stuff and exit the car. Many women just carry far too much stuff, including myself. I'm currently pregnant, and my toddler has picked up on my oofs and I guess whenever I get up from a seated position, and it's hilarious to see him spring up while saying oof like he's an 80-year-old man. Monica Lewinsky was treated horribly. While she played a role in the situation, she was treated like it was all her fault. She was 22. When I was a kid, 22 was the same as 42 in my mind. But now that I'm an adult, 22 is still a kid in so many ways. 2 very painful lessons regarding religion. 1. Realizing the difference between what you were taught and what is actually written in your preferred religious texts. It's incredibly difficult to let go of something you hold as truth, only to realize most of what you were taught was an effort to groom you into a set of behaviors. The severe guilt you go through when deciding to let go of everything you believe and to decide for yourself what you believe and how your lived experiences support that belief. 2. That when you remove all the fear-based crap from religion, you actually get closer to the real value of religion. You don't need to treat your religion like a hammer to condemn others to heck. You don't need to treat your belief like an insurance policy in case you die. You don't need to be afraid of heck to treat other people with kindness. TLDR, religion isn't about being selfish, it's about being selfless. You don't need to be afraid of heck to treat other people with kindness. This summarizes humanity. That there is something we are working toward, some sort of end state that when reached means you'll be fulfilled all the time. Also that we were gonna evolve past our current conflicts and enter some sort of technological utopia. What a joke. We've evolved technologically. Sociologically we're pretty primitive. We have the resources and technology now, for the first time ever, to solve almost every problem facing humanity and create a much better quality of life for all. But here we are, crabs in a bucket. Young me, mum and dad will always be here with me. Older me, mum and dad are really old and soon I'll be alone. A hard realization of adulthood. Knowing that I will become the rock of my family as my parents pass away is terrifying, but a challenge I think I can accept. Good thing I have another 20 years or so before that happens if everyone stays healthy and avoids some sort of accident. Owning an old car was a sign of being poor. Now I think that it's a sign of someone who cares about keeping things running. Some of the richest people I know drive old, plain-looking cars. If I am not married and a mother by the time I'm 35, I will be single and childless for the rest of my life. 35 is very old. If people are still single by then, there is something very wrong with them. I remember thinking this when I was 12 and watching Bridget Jones's Diary. I couldn't imagine anything worse. Next week I turn 35. I've spent most of my life single, never married, and childless. I have lived abroad, traveled all over, have a successful career, a loving family, lots of wonderful friends, and my health. I am seeing a man I have known most of my life and adore. I look and feel a lot younger than 35, and with both grandmothers having children late, 40 and 48, I'm not ruling out motherhood yet. 12-year-old me is a dumbass. That a person's success is a reflection of his/her talents or work ethic. Growing up meant realizing there are plenty of talented, hard-working people whose skills are unappreciated, and more than a few lazy dumbasses with tons of money and power. I get paid 4 or 5 times as much as my partner when accounting for total compensation. She works way harder at her job than I do at my cozy WFH job. My job is just considered higher value by corporate entities. It has nothing to do with how hard I work. That governments of all sizes were competent and had the people's best interests at heart. Now that I know people in many different levels of government, it's literally the blind leading the blind. Nobody's driving the bus and everyone's out for their own interests. The whole point of democracy is that the people in power are supposed to do good for the people to stay in power. Unfortunately, they found a loophole where they tell the people what they want, and the people believe them. It's totally cool to be yourself and express yourself. I'm totally on board with that. But your physical appearance, not talking looks, big clothes, hygiene, and general care, will absolutely have an impact on how other people interact with you, and this could very well make your life more difficult than it needs to be. For context, when I was a young rebellious teenage lad, I very much did not take care of my appearance and dressed very street punk-like with the attitude that if people judged me on how I looked, I didn't want to deal with them. When I got older, changed my attitude a bit more, and started taking a basic interest in my physical appearance, I immediately noticed the change in my interactions with strangers during my day-to-day, and for the better no less. It was a game changer for me, and something I'm still very conscious of. Just brush your hair, and make sure you don't stink at a bare minimum. Growing up I was a perfectionist. One of the worst parts of this is that I based intelligence on ability to speak properly. Anyone with a regional dialect, or poor grammar, seemed less intelligent. I've since grown out of this false belief and actually enjoy learning about things like vernacular, accents, AAE, and especially the ability to code switch. When someone called me sir for the first time and I was like, oh crap, I'm an adult. OHH, there aren't actually real adults. Oh, we are totally fricked. Suicide. Grew up Roman Catholic, so it was a sin and a selfish act. Now I can't even imagine the torment they are going through leading up to it. Homelessness is because these people are addicts. Some perhaps, but for the majority drugs, alcohol are how they cope with the situation. The blaming of addicts is ridiculous. The appeal of alcohol when you're in pain is completely obvious. It's also advertised very strongly to everyone. Boredom is good. When things are boring they are stable and going fine. I prefer when my government is playing tug-o-war over budget and tax reform rather than going to war or my fundamental rights. Honestly, I used to see the good in people and try to make allowances for them. Now I feel like most people I meet are selfish assholes with room temperature IQs. Interesting, I've grown the opposite. I was way more bitter about other people in my younger years. I was told family comes first, that God loves me no matter what, that working hard would make me a millionaire, that education was the best thing I could do for myself. When I came out at 16, my mom and church disowned me. I've worked 2-3 jobs at a time my whole life but never had more than a few thousand in the bank. I still owe on student loans from a career path that I'm no longer on, 20 years later. I still owe on student loans from a career path that I'm no longer on, 20 years later. Oh, I related to this so much. It'll be nice when my master's I got at 25 is paid off at 40 while I'm working in a field I'm just getting into at the ground floor at 35. Brussels sprouts are good crap when cooked by people who know what they're doing. Oh, and maybe people being homeless poor etc isn't their own fault. My Brussels sprouts recipe, because we can do better than olive oil and salt. No offense. Do ahead. Fish caramel. 1 stalk lemongrass, rough chopped. 1 bulb garlic, rough chopped. 1 lg shallot, rough chopped. 1 lg piece ginger, peeled and chopped. 1 cup fish sauce. 1 cup water. 1 cup sugar. Combine first 5 ingredients in pot and cook to caramelize. Deglaze with fish sauce and add water and sugar. Cook until reduced by half, approx 30 minutes. Strain, cool, and reserve. Sweet chili sauce. 2 ounces sugar, 1/2 oz Korean chili flake, 2 ounces fish sauce, 1/2 oz water, 2 ounces white vinegar, 1 ounce green onion whites, 1 ounce garlic, salt to taste. Combine salt, sugar and chili flakes, mix well. Combine liquid ingredients and mix well. Pour liquids into salt mixture. Slice green onions in thin rounds. Thinly slice garlic. Add onions and garlic to rest of ingredients and reserve. Actual meal time. Brussels sprouts. Halve Brussels sprouts and fry or bake until crispy. Mix sprouts with equal parts fish caramel and chili sauce. Sauce to taste. Finish with fresh lemon juice and serve hot. Is it a lot more work than normal? Sure. Is it worth it? Very much so. Dude, my parents have the taste but of Iraq and cooking skills of 7-year-old. I thought I hated everything and only liked food I could cover in ketchup and hot sauce. Turns out things just need to be made better with some flavor and not just add table salt or pepper after the fact. Why did they even have all those other spices in the cabinet when I know they never use them? I used to think a person's health was entirely their own doing. I grew up, went to grad school, and worked in research and learned and saw that is just simply wrong for so many people. Many people do not have disposable income or access to resources to live healthy. Nutrition isn't taught very well. Physical activity education is abysmal. People may not live near safe walking, running, biking paths. Many areas have poor access to healthy foods. Healthy foods are expensive. People of color and of lower income and education receive lower quality care by healthcare professionals. Exercise gear and clothes are expensive. There are huge safety and infrastructure considerations that prevent consistent and affordable healthy living habits. It's harder to be healthy with all of this working against you versus growing up with more money in the suburbs or living near the mountains. Also, some illnesses are just genetic, and some will cause you to permanently be sick. Nothing health or fitness can cure. Works helping some people, but not all. Getting sick is even harder than on top of things, so help is near impossible sometimes, especially if you have something on the rarer side. People are more open-minded and treat male and female equally. Turns out despite all the modernness my Indian parents and relatives show, they still hold the same toxic mentality. For what is worth, I have found that I am able to talk, explain and change some backward viewpoints my parents held. Surprisingly, a lot of the backward thinking stem from very real consequences they have experienced themselves or seen happen in their time. All I had to do was show that time had changed and they need not worry anymore. The need to have children, aka necessary to be happy or fulfilled. Turns out, you don't need to procreate to be happy, you just need yourself. If you decide you want to have children, then fine, but don't think you need to cause society deems it so. When I was young, war was something glorious that brave heroes did. Now, war is at best a bad idea, and more commonly, a way for the rich and powerful to destroy the young and naive. As a teen, universal healthcare is more or less evil. Now, private health insurance companies are more or less evil. Candy good, veggies bad, to veggies good. Candy is nice once in a while. Must get laid to me. It's not worth putting up with the drama of another human. I've had plenty of sex and meaningful relationships. I don't want to die to are we there yet? Feeling that last one and I'm only 30. I'd assumed that I'd be a wise conservative at this point, figuring that the logic would eventually make sense to me. It still doesn't make sense to me, and the version of conservatism I'm exposed to these days is less compelling than ever. Correcting people's mistakes. I used to think it was important to share knowledge with people. Now I don't even bother because 9/10 people don't give a crap about what you know, so I'll let most people freak up and move on. I grew up believing that we all had a choice of destiny. 99% of society's purpose is to give the 1% what it wants. In all actuality, it's like high school on a bigger scale. The popular and rich kids get whatever they want and get away with more. The kids on the lowest rung are often fall short and get in trouble more often. The popular rich kids often turn their noses up and bully the poor and unpopular as well. We're living in a society where everyone is trying to be okay with that, but it really isn't okay. My mom used to tell me that middle school, high school was society on a smaller scale, and sure if it was to help me or tell me to toughen up, haha. That everyone is equal. That crap is such a freaking lie. Or thinking that the world would get along someday. How I was a hopeful child, I guess. The Germans have a word for this feeling of disappointment in the world. Weltschmerz. It's a good word. That life has some sense of fairness to it. Things just are how they are. Lots of things in the world are unfair by nature. I don't see much of a cosmic order to that anymore. I was that jerk that didn't believe in social programs. I will happily admit that teenage me was a dumbass with no awareness or understanding of how the real world works. Now that I'm in it, we need more social programs. People are hurting out there, and for absolutely no reason at all. Many people don't understand that helping the underprivileged makes all of our lives better. They just see it as why the frick should I pay for that, stop taxing me so much and only invest in the things I use without considering the long-term effects of people struggling to find employment, childcare, food, medical care, etc. Definitely my opinion about sweet. I loved them as a child, but nowadays I can't eat sweet stuff anymore because it just does not taste good to me. I'm male. I thought that women had the long end of the stick in modern society, and that predatory behavior against women was mostly a historical concept that only happened rarely in the modern times. Spoiler alert, not the case. Imagine that half of humanity is as bigger and stronger than you as an NFL player is and that they want to have sex with you. I used to be, for some reason, angry at people on welfare. Now I don't give a crap. They should even get more money. Billionaires and companies cheat the system for millions and billions in the arc. Canada's IRS has admitted they don't go after them because they are lawyered up. The weird thing is I've always been kinda left wing, but I guess you can have some cringy ideas when you're still living with your parents. I grew up in a family where if something bad happened to you, then it was kind of thought that it was your own fault. In hindsight, that wasn't true even then, but that was the thinking. That kind of thinking leads to a victim-blamey kind of mentality regarding other people, and it demands perfection from yourself at all times. Neither of those things are healthy. Eventually, I ran into a situation where I got screwed over, but there was nothing I could have done better. That led to the kind of introspection I needed. That being respectful to all old people is what I should do. No, respect yourself to walk away because a lot of these toxic PPL are generations before us. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video. Bye for now.